everybody, welcome back. On today's episode, we're going to be talking a little bit about bug out bags. Probably one of my most annoying subjects that I've seen proliferated from I don't know, 2010 on, maybe before that, who knows. So what is a bug out bag? What is bugging out? That's a good question. That's a good place to start. So bugging out is your primary location, your safe location, which is generally your home, is now not safe anymore. And you must go from point A, your old safe space, to your new safe location. All right? So with that, you should have a secondary safe location. If you don't, think about that. Think about that even before you start putting together a bug out bag, okay? Because if you have this bag full of stuff, it is meant to get you to point B. If you don't have point B, then putting the bag together is semantics. It won't do anything for you. So have a location planned out. And preferably, your location should have supplies there to get you through whatever time frame you think this is going to incur, okay? So then the bug out bag, generally the 72-hour bag, thereabouts, should be filled with stuff that will help you get from point A to point B, to where you're safe. Now, it doesn't have to include your entire arsenal, because again, at your secondary location, you should have other stuff. And, for me, I have a bug out bag, and then I have my backpacking gear. I'm probably just going to throw my backpack on and put my bug out bag on the front and just be nice and comfy with all the bags. I don't know. But I have a couple of different gear related things that running out the door, I'd probably pick up a couple things and throw them in the truck. So, I build my bug out bags based upon 5 principles, okay? There is one piece of one of these principles that I'm not going to talk about today, and I'll explain why. So 5 principles. We have food, water, shelter, protection, and then finally fire. Okay? Now in the protection category, I guess I would loop in a medical kit, some sort of a little kit of whatever. I'm not necessarily qualified to talk to you about that. There are a ton of channels out there that are. A lot of medical professionals, courses you can take. But the one thing that I will tell you is if you intend to carry a med kit in your bug out bag, or in general, you should know how to use every piece that's in that medical kit. And there are a lot of subscription boxes, there are a lot of, just general things floating around with all these fancy pieces of equipment that you probably don't know how to use. And let's be real with each other for a second, just for a small second. Chances are, if you're staring down a gaping wound, you don't have any experience with dealing with that. True trauma. And, trauma pads, clotting agents, sutures, all this stuff is probably pretty foreign to the majority of people. And it doesn't work like in the movies where they just take a fish hook and start sewing themselves up like in Roadhouse. It just doesn't work like that. So don't put things in your med kit that you're not ready to use. Because chances are, if you do have to use them, and you use them incorrectly, you might not have a good day. Especially if it's on yourself. So I'm not going to talk about a med kit. I do usually keep a reasonable med kit, around. And you probably should too. But just know what's in it. So let's go down the line here, and I will kind of start to explain a few things. Now, first, we can talk about a pack, and I'm not overly, I don't have any recommendations for packs. This is a pack that I've kind of been using, and this is something I bought years ago. I don't remember if I bought this on Amazon or if this was from a surplus, like a local store. It's not like a surplus item or anything, but it's a pretty heavy duty, reasonably well padded with nice zippers, nice big zippers, and it can condense down a little bit. You have some straps here and there. I used this as a range bag for a while, and yeah, it works well for what it is. The webbing I don't ever use, but it's got, like a nice big pocket, another pocket, big thing, and then like a top pocket and like a bottom pocket. There's a lot of pockets. So for me, this works adequately. And it has some reasonably nice, thick, comfy straps, and a hip belt. And chest belt. So you can really kind of cinch this in to your body a little bit more. So this is kind of, I wouldn't take this backpacking with me, but it runs on some of those basic principles. So the hip belt and the chest belt keeps it really, tight to you, so it's not moving around and everything, jingling around. Those are certain things that I would probably look for. Oh, and I haven't gotten this bag out for so long. It also has another compartment back here. It's hard to see, it's all black, but it's a big old deep welled pocket that you could put like a water bladder into if you wanted to put a water bladder in there. But honestly, I want to say I didn't pay much for this, but it's a pretty darn good pack. It's a bit big for my uses, but it works. So when you're thinking about a pack, for me, make sure you have nice, comfy straps that are going to go around you, because chances are, if you're footing it, if you're legging it, if you're on foot, you're going to want something comfortable on your shoulders. I think the hip belt is great. The chest belt is also great, so you have a lot of stabilization there. And then just make sure you have enough room for all of your stuff. And, a nice, reasonable ripstop nylon is pretty good too. So, bag. Let's go to whatever first tenet. Hopefully I lined everything out on the table with how I just said it in the video, but if not, so sue me. Food. Food is very important. You need food to live. Now, a lot of you have been watching this channel. You're probably saying, "Oh man, he's gonna put a bunch of MREs and like some freaking freeze-dried stuff in there." No, not really. So this is a it's a bug out bag. Now I might put an MRE in it, maybe, but those are pretty big and they're kind of heavy too. What I actually like for this type of stuff are some of these Green Belly meal to go bars, I guess. They're these big bars. I think I've only done one of these on the channel, but each of these is a third of your daily nutritional value. And they're good for, well, the manufacturer says good for up to a year, but you can stretch that longer. They just don't recommend over 2 years. So this is something that is delicious, made of real ingredients, has real calories in it, and I would probably put, granted, if you're saying 72 hours, you would put in 9 of these. For me, I would probably put in like maybe 6 or 7, but I also eat really light, especially when I'm hiking or when I'm moving. So I would probably ration that out a lot more. But anyway, 9 would be recommended for 3 days. But those are real food. And this isn't those crappy cardboard chalk emergency bar things that taste vaguely of coconut and tears and desperation. Those are garbage. They're garbage calories. Oh, it's 20 million calories. Yeah, but they're empty calories. They won't actually get you going at all. A lot of those do have, and I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them do pack in a lot of sugar, and it's just going to make you crash. They're garbage, and I would never buy them personally. That would be an absolute like Donner Party last resort thing. I would not particularly recommend it, but the Green Belly I think are really good. And even though this bag should have everything contained in it for the long term, make sure you do rotate stuff out. That's just how you should be doing it anyway, even with an MRE. But I wouldn't recommend freeze-dried food, at least for this, because you have to add water. Now we're going to talk about water next, but I wouldn't necessarily want to worry about water for my food. So if you're going to put an MRE in there, fine. If you're going to, an XMRE, any other meal ready to eat that you don't have to add water to, that's cool. I go with the green belly, but I think they're really good. You could supplement that with other stuff. Mix and match. Do what you want. But I wouldn't want to rely on water. So let's go to water. So first and foremost, it's a good idea to have actual water. And I have a couple of these bags of water that I've had for a while. These are usually good for up to like, between 3 to 5 years. These are cool. If you want, you can do some of the canned water. I actually have some of that on the way. I don't have it now. You could do bottled water. The only problem with bottles is they do leach. And contrary to whatever you may or may not believe, it's fine. Leaching plastic is not good. However, with any of this stuff, if you are carrying something with water in it, I would try and put it in some sort of either a bag, just in case something's punctured, or some sort of case or something like that, lightweight plastic case or whatever, just so you minimize puncturing. So actually bringing real water with you is a good idea. Don't just rely on water to be available to you. Even if it's just a couple bottles of water, put it in there. And I'll tell you what, water is probably going to be the biggest weight thing in here. Just think about it though. What do they say? What is it? 8 glasses of water a day? 64 ounces, right? Per day is your recommended water ration. So you stave off dehydration. It's a lot of weight for 72 hours. So it wouldn't be a bad idea to know a route or several routes to your bug out location and scout some water sources. Wouldn't be a bad idea. So on the sort of similar path with water, it's good to have a filter. Now, I know a lot of people use these life straws, and life straws are fine, but they're not really the best. And these are okay. I wouldn't primarily think about this, but I think this is just primarily a charcoal filter. So there is a potential that other microbials will pass through this and you might have some trouble. But this is fine and it's cheap. You can get these cheap. Sawyer Mini, that's another nice option. Reasonably cheap as well. Not as great a flow rate, but these definitely do work a little bit better than the Life Straws. Personally, for me, I use the Sawyer Squeeze. Got to get out my little my little kit here. So for my squeeze, you have the squeeze. Definitely improved flow rate. Has like this little cappy thing, like a water bottle would. And I find the squeeze works very effectively. And I like to cut a little water bottle as a scoop. That works for me. And then, some sort of vessel to put water in. This is like an Evernew bag. The bags that come with the Sawyer Squeeze or whatever Sawyer product you're using are actually really good too. So I wouldn't worry. You can also use these as well. Only thing is, if you are out in the cold, don't leave these to freeze because they will bust. Even if you backfill them really well, and there's always the chance a little water could remain, so just be wary of it. So that's water. Let's go ahead and go to shelter. Now, a lot of bug out bags I find don't think about shelter enough or think they're going to be bushcraft masters, which granted you might be, but I tend to put together a little bit of a small-ish kit just for this because it makes me feel a little bit more secure. So first and foremost, a tent. I picked this up a little while ago and I think it's a decent enough product. This is from Don't Die in the Woods. This is their little survival tent here, and I think it's actually a reasonably okay product. Now, it is a Mylar type tent. However, it is a much thicker Mylar. Now, is it going to tear? Potentially, but this is like a temp tent. This isn't meant for long term, and I would take it out of this container as well. But, it's a little bit smaller out of the container. But at any rate, it is a reasonable Mylar, and Mylar does work. It just, the problem is it's usually so crinkly and really easy to tear. This is a bit thicker, so it's a little bit more tear resistant. And again, for a temporary tent, not a big deal. I have better tents, obviously, but just to get to where I'm going, this is fine. And you might have some better options out there, but I'm going to go with this just for sake of this video. Chill. Completely optional, but one of the things that we don't always think about is the temperature of the ground. So a ground pad or some sort of sleeping mat is actually really cool. This is from Climate. This is the insulated ultralight SL whatever. I got this a little while ago. This actually goes backpacking with me. I couldn't find it for the sake of this video, but the Outdoorsman's Lab sleeping mat is actually pretty good too. It's inflatable, and inflatables are great. So when you're bugging out, one of the things that I always try and think about is managing stress level. So if you can get a good night's sleep, that's really good. Sleeping on the dirt and the sticks and the rocks doesn't necessarily give you a good night's sleep. However, if you are on a pad, you are potentially getting a better night's sleep, and that's something that I would recommend. The Outdoorsman's Lab is a good 3 season. The Climate might climb into maybe 4 season, not full on like dead of winter probably, but it has the same insulatory value as like a Neolite Thermarest Neolite X whatever. I don't care. I can't spit it out. But anyway, it's a decent sleeping mat. But any of these are pretty good. You can do the foam, but they're usually much bigger. The inflatables usually get down a little bit into a much smaller package. You could also bring a little inflatable pillow. That's up to you, just comfort, or just ball up some clothes or something. That's up to you, but that's something that I would think about. Now, another thing is a sleeping bag. I don't see this very commonly in a lot of bug out bags, and if I do, it's like a Mylar, and those things are not very comfortable. They don't really do anything. And it's kind of a budget option, sleeping bags that I do recommend is this bad boy right here. So this is from Teton. This is the Teton Trailhead. It's a 20, well, they say it's a 20-degree sleeping bag. And that pretty much means it's probably more like a 30-degree sleeping bag. But this is pretty reasonably priced, around 50 bucks in most regards. It's very comfy. I have used this. This is actually my brother's, but I've used these as well. And it's good. It's nice and comfy. It does keep you pretty warm, and it compacts down pretty good too in its stuff sack. Now, the reason why I chose this one also is because it's synthetic fiber. Now, I have a down quilt, which I use for backpacking, and it works really, really nice. The problem with down is that you cannot keep it compressed for long periods of time, or it could lose some of its insulatory value. The same if you get it wet. Synthetic fibers, however, do not necessarily care for long time storage or for getting wet. So for a bug out bag, this is what I would say. And this is, I want to say it's like 2.9 pounds, so it's definitely not near as light as my down quilt, but it's reasonably light and it packs down pretty good too. So this is honestly a decent budget recommendation. Now there are others that are probably going to cost you more money, but this is kind of getting to the point of the least quality for money that I would personally buy. But again, you might have some other recommendations. Feel free to drop them in the comments. And by the way, I'll leave links to most, if not all of this stuff here if you want to check it out on your own. So that is shelter. Tent, sleeping bag, probably a ground mat, maybe a pillow. These things are good, good to have. Protection. Protection is next. So protection, a couple of things. A good knife. Good knife is always good, right? Now this this is a Mora. This is the Light My Fire. I bought this years ago. I have a couple of these, and I honestly, they're one of my favorite knives. And I like them dually because one, it's a sick blade, and if I can get it out of the hilt, it has a little striker in the hilt too. So, and I've used this, and so it's nice to have that backup striker, and it's in your knife. Now, I believe, I actually don't know if the Light My Fire is still available, but I do know the companion, what is it, like companion striker or something is available. Again, links in the description. And then I think they also have a more expensive model, which has in the sheath, it has the striker in the sheath. I like this knife. Good steel and very sharp, very good knife. And listen, I know some people dog Moras, but I think that they're great, especially for a bug out bag or for camping. I don't need a super expensive knife, and it has a little extra advantage of having that striker in there. Nice textured rubberized grip. It's a good knife. And reasonably cheap too. I think when I bought this, it might have been 30 bucks. It was on the higher range of Mora. I think the companion's more in the 20. But you can get a Mora for, 10 to 15 bucks too, and just get another striker yourself. This is a little bit more fancy schmancy, I guess, but that's what I like for a bug out bag. This is also optional, but a collapsible bow saw is really cool. This is a Gerber product, and I picked this up a few years ago. I've been using it on some trips if I don't know the area very well. And again, it's just a foldable saw. Weighs a pound. There are a ton of these out there. Backpacking community really seems to like them. And yeah, for processing wood, not necessarily for protection. Please don't try and saw somebody or something if you hear a bump in the night. But it is really good just for processing wood, especially in areas where you don't necessarily know if you'll have wood. But it's a good option. I'm not saying you need to have it in your bug out bag, but it's a good recommendation. Good headlamp. This is a headlamp I've used for a number of years. It's a rechargeable. Rechargeables and bug out bags, I don't know. I'd probably have maybe a battery operated one in a bug out bag, but this is one I just got on like an Amazon sale. It's like a no name, but it's really nice. It has a high beam, low beam, flasher, and a red light. The red light's really nice for night hiking. But just get yourself a good headlamp and throw it in here as well with some batteries, or if you have a rechargeable one, that's cool too. I personally think that this is a good thing to have. Or you can just carry a flashlight. I like the headlamps. Keeps it out of my hands so I can have other things in my hands. Duct tape. Can't tell you how many times duct tape has been useful out in the woods. Or just anywhere, really. Good roll of duct tape, it never goes awry in a bug out bag. If you are using a tent with poles, I've seen more poles break on trail than I care to count. Get a roll of duct tape out, tape that bad boy back up, away you go. Some 550 paracord is also pretty good too. Is it necessary? No, not really. Is it nice to have? Yes. I don't even remember how many feet this is, but just throw a roll of it in there. Just throw a couple 100-foot roll in your thing. It weighs practically nothing, and it is dead useful. Compass. How many of you know how to use a compass? This is just, kind of a lens static compass, and learn how to use a compass. But a compass is nice to have, especially if you lose your way. You should probably also know what direction you have to go in too. But if you know that, a compass will help you out quite a bit. Usually pretty lightweight too. Ton of compasses out there. This is just one that I have. But it's a good thing to have. But know how to use it, just like the med kit. Pair of gloves. I mean, can you think of why you need a pair of gloves? Listen, gloves are good to have. You never know when you might need them. I just picked these up. I have a couple other pairs of trail gloves as well somewhere. But anyway, a good pair of gloves is nice to have for a bug out bag. Protects your hands, does glove things. It's good to have. Lastly, and I'm not saying that this is the end all be all to protection, and there's probably more that I might think of later. Again, comment below if you have other things. But the other thing too, if you are a firearm owner, if you can own a firearm, and if you exercise Second Amendment right here in the United States, and I'm not saying good or bad about any of it, but if you are going to have a firearm, you should have extra magazines or extra ammunition in your bag, depending on what you carry. If you have, say, a handgun, maybe it's your EDC handgun, you should have a couple of magazines for that handgun in your bug out bag. If you're planning on taking like a hunting rifle or a shotgun, put a box of extra ammunition in your bag. Trust me, it's good. It's good to have. Just in case, right? So lastly, let's go ahead and talk about fire. Now, fire has a lot of different components, and we'll go with the easiest stuff here first. Fire starter is very important, and I have a couple of recommendations. There are a lot of people out there that are going to say, what about the Vaseline soaked cotton ball? Yes, it does work, but it doesn't work on all occasions. It's fine. And I actually forgot one. Anyway, the tab heater, the little heater tabs for tab stove, Esbit stoves, those work really well. Definitely recommend those, and you can kind of chop those up into pieces if you don't want to use, because like I have some really big bricks of them that come in some rather large stoves, but those are definitely a reasonably cheap option. So yeah, the little tab heaters for the tabs for the stoves, the Esbit stoves, those work really well. Sorry, I don't have one in front of me. I forgot it. These little fire starter logs. This one is just Duraflame brand. These are actually really great. You can break these up into multiple pieces as well, or just use one whole one. You know, put 2 of these in that bug out bag, and it'll last you for quite a bit. These will start a fire. These will start a fire in the wet. These will start a fire at about any time you need them to start a fire. So these are actually really good, and they're reasonably cheap too. I think I just recently bought a box of 24 for like 15 bucks, so that's pretty good. This is an interesting product that I got in a subscription box, but Hot Snot. This has been going around quite a bit in a lot of different things. It's just a flammable paste. It works good though. This is another one that's been popping up on Amazon a lot, but Quick Survive. These little tab things, and you just basically burn the plastic. You light the plastic on fire, and then it gets this fuel in here. Kind of seems to be similar to the tab, the little tabs, but this works pretty good too. So those are a couple recommendations. Obviously, you have your striker, but carry a lighter. I mean, this is just a little mini Bic, but if you don't have a lighter, what are you doing, man? Put a couple in there. You know, put a few. Don't put your favorite Zippo lighter in there, though. Zippos, they need the fuel, so unless you plan on carrying extra fuel, which I wouldn't, just put a handful of Zippo, or a hand of little Bic lighters in there. You'll be fine, trust me. Now, another thing that I think is actually pretty cool, although not necessarily needed, but I think it's cool, especially in like a wet environment, is a product from Solo Stove, if I can get it out of the packaging here. So these little Solo stoves are actually really neat. This is the Solo model. The Solo, I think it's the Solo model. Anyway, it's a single model. It's the smallest model you can get. They make huge ones of these too. But you and I haven't even used it yet, but you put in, you know, whatever wood, whatever stock you have, and it's just a little stove. You can even put in the little tabs as well, or even some of your fire starter in this too. and it makes a nice little stove. Now, this isn't necessary because, again, I mean, really the only thing we'd be using here, unless I brought some other type of food, is boiling water maybe, or just having a little tiny fire to heat you up. But this is nice, especially if it's wet out. I think it's a good product. It's a little bit on the pricey side though. I think it's like $70 maybe. Again, links in the description, but I feel like this is nice. Now you might say, well, what about like any other camp stove? Yeah, I mean, you could use an alcohol stove, but then you have to carry the alcohol. You could carry a canister stove, which I do for backpacking. Then you also have to carry the canister. There's always going to be wood around. I'm not saying that you can't take your your whatever, your pocket rockets and your whatevers. That's fine too. I think for a bug out bag though, I don't want to necessarily rely on, I mean, what happens if that canister gets punctured? What happens if I forget to replace the canister? Yada, yada, yada. This is a little bit more foolproof because there's always going to be wood. Hopefully. All right. And the last piece here for fire, and I guess this is sort of cookware. Again, not necessary, but if you have to boil water, you have to boil water. Some little pot. This is one I backpack with, but I've always enjoyed this one. This is the GSI boiler, I think is what it's called. But in all honesty, you could use something smaller, like, just get a Toaks cup. And a lot of backpackers actually use just the Toaks cup, 450 milliliter. But something to boil water in, and this actually might be more applicable as well. But if you want to go big, cool. If you want to go small, also cool. But either way, some sort of vessel to boil water in would probably be a good idea. And these are lightweight. I like this because the handle clamps down on the top here, so you can put stuff in here and keep it dry. Well, dry-ish. I mean, it's not watertight, but I mean, you could keep your fire starter in here. And, whatever. But anyway, I think that having a vessel to boil water in is good too. I'll leave that up to you though. So that's a bug out bag. These are some recommendations I've made. There will be a lot of links in the description if you want to check out individual items. But suffice it to say, this might not cover every single thing you might need, but it's a decent start. And if you don't have a bug out bag or some sort of go bag, consider it. But as I said in the beginning, make sure that you have a place to go. Because if you don't have a place to go, you might have to hold out where you're at. And then you'll have to think about how to do that. We might talk about that at a later time. But anyway, that's a bug out bag. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. In the comments below, leave me any suggestions that maybe you have in your bug out bags, or maybe things that you think would be a good add to a video like this, or just anything else you'd like to talk about. Leave it in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, all that good stuff, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.